Back to Miller. Oh my goodness.
Herbert.
Sidearm sling, and it's a touchdown.
Tyrese Maxey.
Oh, good spin move by Filipowski for the news. Give him 9.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Beef Upfront podcast. Here, your host, Ryan Coyle, back today with another episode covering some of the big college basketball games that we have coming up early this week on Monday and Tuesday. Recording this on Sunday afternoon before the NFL gets started. We got some big games to really kick off or tip off, this college basketball season this week. I mean, last week, opening week was up and down in terms of big games. There was a few nice matchups. We had St. Mary's, New Mexico on Thursday. That was a pretty decent mid-major game. Memphis, Missouri Friday night. Texas A&M, Ohio State. The marquee matchup of the weekend was Arizona-Duke, where Arizona went to Duke and pulled off a win there. But we got some big ones lined up this week. We're going to cover them all in this episode, kind of just a little rapid fire on each game, give my thoughts and predictions on the matchups. We have Michigan versus St. John's. We have Xavier versus Purdue. We have Marquette versus Illinois. And then we have the Champions Classic. We have Duke. They are playing Michigan State. And then we have Kansas, Kentucky. So some big name teams. All these teams I expect to be vying for tournament spots. You could look at Michigan and St. John's in that first game as potentially two teams that are going to be right there hovering around the bubble, I think, come March. But Marquette, Illinois, Duke, Michigan State, Kansas, Kentucky, those are all top teams in the sport right now and teams that should be firmly in the conversation to be competing for a trip to, Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four. So if you're just starting to get into college basketball, this is the show for you as college football starts to wind down. Only 2 weeks left. We're going to be getting more and more into the college basketball scene. So first matchup I want to touch on is that Michigan-St. John's game. This is part of the Gavitt tip-off games. Michigan going into this matchup at 2-0, St. John's at 1-0. Obviously, the big thing with St. John's, Rick Pitino there. He remade the roster through the transfer portal, bringing in some high-profile recruits as well. This is a team that is going to want to get up and down the floor. They had 90 points in their season opener over Stony Brook and a 90-74 win. Joel Soriano had 22 points in that game. But with Rick Pitino's team, as always, they want to play fast-paced. They want to share the ball. They want to get up and down and play a real team-friendly style of game. And then when you look at Michigan, they've impressed. I mean, they haven't played great competition their first two games, beating UNC Asheville 99-74 and Youngstown State 92-62. So winning both of their first two games by 25 or more, winning those comfortably. But I think the offense has been very impressive for this team in the early parts of the season. 95.5 points per game. We said 92 last night in the win over Youngstown and 99 as well in the win over UNC Asheville. They're shooting the ball really well, 54.9%. They were efficient. Now, this is certainly a step up in competition. And as I said at the beginning, these are two teams that I'm expecting to compete for a tournament spot. I don't think one of these teams fails to make the tournament, I wouldn't say it's a complete failure of a season. But these are teams I expect to hover around that 8-9 market and potentially find their way into the dance. Doug McDaniel is a very good point guard for Michigan. Watch out for him in this one. Six assists per game so far in the early goings. And then they also have this transfer from Tennessee. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Nakuma, I believe it is, but he's averaging 21 points, 8.5 rebounds per game so far through those two games. So both of these teams have a step up in competition this week as well. Haslam Metrics, website we use for a lot of our projections here or before the actual lines come out on DraftKings. They have this one projected as an 81-77 victory for St. John's, who is at home in this game. So like a 3.5 point spread there with over under sitting at like 157.5. I would kind of expect it to be. In this one, I think I would actually like Michigan. I think Michigan has a little bit more returning kind of continuity. St. John's is going to, I think, have a bit of a workup in the process because this is a completely new roster, but I do expect both these teams to score. So if I had to have a play in this game, as I said, probably the number I think will be like 157.5, 158, somewhere around there. I think that this game goes over. I think we see both of these teams get up and down the floor and score a lot of points, and it should be a really fun game. This is a 6:30 tip-off on Monday night on FS1. So that's my thoughts on that game. I will take Michigan actually to win this game outright, and the over as well would be my picks for this one. Second part of the Gavitt tip-off games. This is a 8:30 tip-off on FS1. Between 2-0 Xavier versus 2-0 Purdue, who's number 3 in the country. Xavier comes into this matchup unranked, but Purdue has been on a mission their first 2 games. Kind of like with Michigan, not obviously playing great competition yet. This is their first big-time test. This one is at Purdue, so one of the best home court advantages in all of college basketball there. But Purdue has covered the spread in both of their first 2 games. Yesterday, they were minus 29.5 against Morehead State, and then they were minus 19 against Samford, and they won that game, I believe, by almost 50 points. Yeah, 53 points. They won that season opener. So they beat Morehead State yesterday by 30. The big thing with this team, obviously, right now is Zach Edey, the most dominant player in the sport, just at his size. But the guard play of these young Purdue guards from last year, which was kind of their Achilles heel, has stepped up early in the season. Braden Smith averaging 9 assists per game, only 2.5 turnovers per game in their first 2 games. Purdue averaging 92.5 points, only allowing 51 as well. So playing some really good defense and finding a way to score the basketball. Xavier kind of playing a little bit slower this year, a little bit lower scoring. They beat Robert Morris in their season opener 77-63, and then they beat Jacksonville yesterday 79-56. But this is a team last year, they were routinely putting up points in the 80s and the 90s. So kind of curious to see if Xavier get this game into a bit of a track meet with Purdue, as we 92.5 points per game, but not exactly a team running up and down the floor a lot. Just very efficient when it comes to their half-court type of offense. When you look at the projections on Haslametrics for this one, they love Purdue. They have this one as a 79-67 win for Purdue. So I'd probably set the line. I think it'll be like minus 11.5 there. And then you look for the total, probably 145.5, 146. I would say that's coming in at. It's another game where I like the over. I think Xavier, when they're at their best, where they were at their best last year, they were getting up and down the floor and scoring the ball at a high rate. Purdue is going to be a team that is able to dominate on offense all year because of Edey. The spacing around him is going to be much better this year, I think, too, with guys that are stepping up in class a little bit and being able to shoot the basketball after an up and down freshman year for a lot of these guys. They're more experienced, and it's really going to open things up on the outside for them with all the dominance of Zach Edey inside. But I do think Purdue is a team on a mission. I expect them to be kind of steamrolling teams this entire year, and I don't think Xavier is going to quite be able to keep up with them in this one. I do like Purdue. If it does come in there at like 11.5, I probably would take them to cover that. But I do like the over in this game. I think this one gets up and down. So I think this is a fun one, but I do think Purdue finds a way to win this one at home. All right, now we transition to Tuesday night, another one of the Gavid tip-off games. We have number 5 Marquette traveling to number 25 Illinois. This should be a fun one. Marquette is my national title pick. I think that they're going to the Final Four, one of the most experienced teams in college basketball, returning from last year, 8 of their 9 top scorers. That's 87% of their offense. Tyler Coyle, last year's Big East Player of the Year. Osa Ighodaro, one of the more athletic, kind of high-profile big men in the Big East. Cam Jones, averaging 21.5 points per game. Through their first 2 games, Marquette 2-0, Illinois at 2-0. But as it's been kind of the common theme through the teams that we've touched on so far, neither of these teams have exactly played a challenging schedule yet. I mean, Illinois beat Oakland yesterday 64-53. Excuse me, that was on Friday night. And then they beat Eastern Illinois 80-52. Marquette beat Rider and Northern Illinois by 95-65 against Rider and 92-70 against Northern Illinois. But this is, as the common theme is, this is both of these teams' first major test, and 2 teams that historically Marquette, under Shaka Smart, they're able to get up and down the floor and score the ball last year. That was kind of their thing. They're averaging 93.5 points per game through their first 2 games this year. Illinois too. They're a team that under Brad Underwood at Illinois have been a team that does really score the ball well. Terrence Shannon Jr., he should be one of the better players in the Big Ten this year. Coleman Hawkins back, Dane Danja. This is going to be a really good Illinois team that I expect to be competing kind of in that second tier of teams in the Big Ten behind like Michigan State and Purdue, who I think are the class of the conference right now. But I think this is going to be a really good matchup, and it's awesome to get these kind of games early in the season because this is a potential tournament game. I think you could see down the line, like a Sweet 16 type of matchup where Marquette's maybe like a 1 seed and Illinois is a 4 or 5. I think both of these teams have that type of ability, and we could see them match up potentially down the line again. But it's awesome to get these in the regular season. It's a huge game at Illinois. They're usually one of the more fun environments, I think, in college basketball. to take in a game or even just watch it on the TV. When you look at the projections for this one, they actually have on Haslam Metrics Illinois winning this game 74-72, an 8 o'clock tip-off on FS1. It's another game where I think there's going to be some points. I could see the total coming in right there at like 145.5. Illinois, though, being a 2-point favorite here, I don't know if I exactly agree that that's going to be the case at the end. That home court advantage might kind of slide it that way, but if it's like a Illinois minus 2.5 here at home, I like Marquette. I think Marquette's going to go win this one outright. I think they're a better team. As I said, they're my national title pick. I think with all the returning experience they have, they're kind of like Purdue. They're going to be on a mission this year, and they don't have to play catch up as much as some of these other teams do in terms of how they remade their roster and whatnot. So I'm really looking for an exciting game here, up and down. I do like the over, and I do think Marquette finds a way to go win this one at Illinois, even if they're an underdog. I'm going to take them on the money line in this game. All right, third game, we go to the State Farm Champions Classic. This is really what kicks off the college basketball season. I think that these two matchups between Duke and Michigan State, and then Kentucky and Kansas. Duke coming into this game at 2-1, Michigan State at 1, or excuse me, yeah, Duke's coming in at 1-1, Michigan State at 1-1. Duke's number 2 in the country, Michigan State number 4. Recording this on Sunday, so we're gonna have the polls will be reworked a little bit, especially with some of the losses. Michigan State, obviously, on opening night, that was the main storyline. They lost to James Madison team that looks like they're going to be pretty good though this year. And then Duke lost the other night to Arizona at Cameron Indoor, but through 2 games, Kyle Filipowski is averaging 25 points. He's looking really good so far in the early going, 7.5 rebounds per game. Tyrese Proctor, I think he's one of the players to watch as a breakout guy in the sport this year. I think he's going to have a big sophomore year. Tyson Walker at Michigan State, AJ Hogarth, Jordan Akins. This is a very experienced Michigan State team as well. And these are 2 teams that have Final Four national title aspirations. I think what Arizona kind of showed, though, the other night, they have a lot of experience. And Duke, while they return a lot of guys, they're also kind of ushering in some new faces as well to this team. So this is a game between a very experienced Michigan State team and then a Duke team that has a lot of returning guys, but not exactly the grizzled vets that this Michigan State team has. So I actually like Michigan State to get the win in this one. I think that they're a neutral site game like this too. I think that James Madison loss was kind of like a wake-up call for them. And I know it's still very early in the season, obviously, but this is one of those games where it's why it's called the Champions Classic for a reason. I mean, these are 2 teams I expect to be competing for champions. I expect it to be a very good battle. Duke is actually favored in this one on Haslam Metrics, 68-65. So another game where I could see it being like a 2-point favorite there. I actually think this one might go under. I like the overs on all the other ones, 68-65. So we're looking at like a 133.5 type thing right there. I actually think this one goes under. I think this is going to be a physical game. I think we see some defense, and it comes down to the wire. But I do like Michigan State in this game and the under. All right, fourth game. Number 1, Kansas at 2-0. Number 16, Kentucky 2-0 as well. Another game where it's kind of the opposite. Like Kentucky has all these young guys, a bunch of 5 stars, Justin Edwards, DJ Wagner, Reed Shepherd, Aaron Bradshaw. I don't think he's back yet, but just a team loaded with 5 stars. And then they have a few grizzled vets in there as well, Antonio Reeves, Trey Mitchell. But then you look at Kansas, they're one of the more experienced teams in the country, and they got probably the biggest transfer portal addition ever with Hunter Dickinson transferring to there. I haven't watched Kansas yet, as their first 2 games were against Manhattan and North Carolina Central. They put up 99 on each of those teams. I was able to watch Kentucky in their season opener against New Mexico State. I think this is going to be one of the better offensive teams that we've seen from Kentucky in recent memory. But I think this is going to be a great game, but another one where it's like Kansas is a much more experienced team. This is Kentucky's real first those guys' real first test at some major college basketball action. So I think Kansas is going to get this one done. They're a 78-69 projected winner on Haslam Metrics. So this is a game where you're probably going to be able to get Kansas at like 8.5 or something. I think I would actually probably lean Kentucky there. Maybe take like Kansas like first half. I think they kind of jump out early, but I think Kentucky maybe will settle in. But a game, I do expect some points in this one. You're looking at probably like a 146.5, I would say, over under with that 78 to 69 projection. So this is a game I do like to get some points. I think Kansas might jump on them a little bit early, but once Kentucky settles in, it should be a good game. And then the final game of the night, another one of the Gavitt tip-off games, a pretty late tip-off. I mean, two teams in the middle of the country, but that's Iowa at 2-0 versus Creighton, who's 2-0. Two of the more prolific offenses historically in college basketball, Fran McCaffrey and then Greg McDermott leading the way. These are two really good offensive coaches. Creighton in their season opener won 105-54 against FAMU, and then North Dakota State they beat yesterday 89-60. Iowa put up 110 on North Dakota and 98 on Alabama State. So the only thing I really want to say about this game is take the over. I don't care what the projection comes in at. The projection win on Haslametrics is 81-75 Creighton. So we're looking at about a 156 over under there. I love it. This is one of those games, the total couldn't be high enough where I wouldn't take it. This is probably my favorite play of the day. And it should be a really fun matchup between two high-powered offenses that go back and forth. I do think Creighton finds a way to get it done, being the home team, but I'm not going to bet a side or the spread in this one. I really love the over. So those are 6 major college basketball games coming up in these next 2 days on Monday and Tuesday. So looking forward to it. And as always, we have you covered here at Beef Up Front throughout the entire college basketball season. I'm going to be trying to do more and more of these episodes covering some of these week games. And then obviously our big extensive preview for the weekend once college basketball really takes over and college football is winding down. So thank you everyone for listening. As always, please like, subscribe, and we will talk next week.